The world stands on the threshold of a stunning demographic transformation. For most of human history, until well into the 19th century, the elderly, here defined as adults aged 60 and over, comprised only a tiny fraction of the population, never more than 4 or 5% in any country at any time. In today's developed world, the elderly comprise roughly 20% of the population. The share is on track to reach 30% by 2040, and that's just the average. In Japan and some of the faster aging European countries, the elderly share of the population will be approaching or even passing 40%. The developing world as a whole is still much younger, but it too is aging, with some countries traversing the entire demographic distance from young and growing to old and stagnant or declining at a breathtaking pace. By 2040, Brazil and Mexico will be nearly as old as the United States, and China will be older. Meanwhile, South Korea will be vying with Germany, Italy, and Japan for the title of oldest country on Earth. Global aging promises to affect everything from workforce productivity and business psychology to the structure of the family and the future shape of the geopolitical order. Perhaps most fatefully, it will throw into question the ability of societies to provide a decent standard of living for the old without imposing a crushing burden on the young. Which countries are most prepared to meet the challenge and which countries are least prepared? CSIS's new Global Aging Preparedness Index, or GAP Index for short, offers the first comprehensive quantitative assessment of the progress that countries worldwide are making in preparing for global aging, and particularly the old age dependency dimension of the challenge. The GAP Index consists of two separate sub-indices, a fiscal sustainability index and an income adequacy index. It covers 20 countries, including most major developed economies and most major emerging markets. The GAP Index offers some good news and some bad news. The bad news is that very few countries do well on both fiscal sustainability and income adequacy. Countries that do well on income adequacy tend to have costly public old age benefit systems, while countries that do well on fiscal sustainability tend to have relatively low elderly living standards and high rates of elderly poverty. 4 of the 7 highest ranking countries on the Income Adequacy Index, the Netherlands, Brazil, Germany, and the UK, are among the 7 lowest ranking countries on the Fiscal Sustainability Index. The United States also exhibits this same worrisome trade-off. It ranks 3rd overall on income adequacy, but 11th on fiscal sustainability. The good news is that there are some exceptions. Australia, which combines a low-cost, means-tested public floor of old age poverty protection with a large, mandatory, and fully funded private pension system, scores in the top half of both indices. So does Chile, which has a similar mix of retirement policies. There are also a few countries, notably Germany and Sweden, which are clearly moving in the right direction. Both have enacted large future cuts in the generosity of their public benefit systems, but at the same time are filling in the resulting gap in elderly income by increasing funded retirement savings and by extending work lives. Clearly, global aging poses a daunting economic and social challenge. Many fast-aging countries, especially in the developed world, seem to face a difficult choice between relieving the growing fiscal burden on the young and maintaining an adequate standard of living for the old. Meanwhile, in the developing world, many countries seem to face precisely the opposite choice: whether to impose a new fiscal burden on the young in order to relieve the growing vulnerability of the old. Yet just as clearly, there are many strategies available to address the challenge, and not all involve painful trade-offs. The GAP Index includes a reform strategy guide, which assesses the urgency and potential payoff in different countries of 7 key reform strategies, from reducing public pension costs and health care costs to increasing birth rates and immigration. 2 strategies in particular, increasing funded pension savings and extending work lives, are especially important since they offer countries a way to escape, or at least to mitigate, the trade-off between fiscal sustainability and income adequacy. We believe that they're the best means for the world's aging societies to maintain an adequate income for the old without imposing a rising burden on the young. With much of the world reeling from the global economic crisis that began in 2008, many policy leaders may conclude that now is not the right time to address the long-term challenge of global aging. This would be a mistake. In fact, the economic crisis has made timely action even more urgent than before. It has drastically reduced the fiscal room that most countries, including the United States, have to accommodate rising old age benefit costs. At the same time, by gutting pension funds and savings accounts, it has increased the vulnerability of the old. There's also the critical issue of public confidence. The public and the markets have begun to suspect that governments have lost control over their fiscal future. In this sense, taking credible steps to address the long-term aging challenge may be a necessary part of ensuring near-term recovery as well.
To read the full report and to access other resources on the Global Aging Preparedness Index, please visit gapindex.csis.org.